Welcome to Season 2 of Coaching While Black. My name is Chris Reed. I'm joined by my co-host
Anthony Andino. Happy to be here.
Today we're going to talk about the LeBron model. And to do so, we're going to talk with Anthony about his experience at the I Promise Academy. Anthony, tell us a little bit about your visit to Akron.
Well, I got sent out there to go to an event for this organization called Stand Together. And it was centered around the I Promise Academy, or in Cleveland, they call it I Promise Land in Akron.
Nice.
Just to see, you know, everything that LeBron has invested and built. Just when it comes to the academy, it goes from like 2nd to 5th grade. He takes in the bottom 30 percentile of 2nd graders and has a goal to improve them to grade level by the time they get out of middle school, which is very impressive. And then he has a 9th, 10th grade cohort and an 11th, 12th grade cohort that he works with outside of the academy to make sure that those things are still, you know, happening for those young people. And it goes as far as to them having their own dorm in 3 colleges in the city of Akron. So Akron University, Ohio City University colleges, and they have their own dorms there. So he goes above and beyond to make sure that those folks have, the staff is invested and the young people feel like they're being well invested into. And for the parents, they came with a lot of, you know, struggles and problems. Some parents were like, hey, we don't have a place to live. I would love to put my kid in this program. So he was like, okay, I'll find a building. They bought a building, turned it into a transitional housing facility. Certain parents, okay, you know, we're here, this is good. I would like to transition into something more permanent. Okay, I'm gonna buy another facility, right? So now you have transitional housing and then a permanent housing for those young people and their families. Some parents, they struggle to find jobs, so he built another facility, or they purchased another facility called House 330, and they employ the parents and the young people and kind of revitalize the economy of the city of Akron, work with local banks to make sure that families have bank accounts, they're invested in the right way. And I believe Chase is the partner for that. Every time something comes up, he steps up. Like the last thing that they're working on when I left, they bought a facility to build a mental health clinic for them. And because parents are like, hey, I want to send my kid to your school, but they don't have a physical. And stuff like that. So he has a clinic for them, and also parents need mental health services. So he makes sure that he stepped up to the plate and made those things available. So just everything that he's done to give back to the city of Akron, and also while giving back, meeting the needs, making sure that what he's doing speaks and represents the people that are there, it's phenomenal what he has going on out there.
I mean, it's phenomenal the work that he's done. You know, he's been in the league 20 plus years, and if you know his background, you know, didn't have a father in the home. You know, mom and him worked it out. They figured a lot out. And at that age of like maybe 14, 15, he was 6'7", 6'8", and, you know, people had their eyes on him. People were trying to get their hands on him. And I always commend his business savvy and how he and his team have grown. I mean, that's what we want to talk about, like the LeBron model of how do you build something positive around a child who is ascending in the world of sport when there's so many people trying to get their hands on him, from AAU coaches to colleges who can now offer money ahead of time. You know, if a kid's 14, 15, like you can offer them an NIL deal depending on the state if they're in high school, which is a dangerous, slippery slope to be in. I want to talk more, and you as a college basketball player, and you know, you had help with your mom helping you with your recruiting and all that. Talk us through what that looked like for you, and what would have been ideal, what you would change, or just for the new age, what makes sense for a young person going through that phase in that process?
Coming out of high school was great. I had a great experience in high school. Transition from high school to college was a lot, because in high school, you know, you don't have to do as much in regards to academics. I'll openly say that. And when you transition into being a college athlete, you have to perform, right? You have to show up for practice. You have to show up to film studies, but at the same time, you have to make sure that you're scheduling all of that around the classes that you need to go to. In high school, that's not a thing. Practice is before school and after school. Now they want you to come to the wet room. Now they want you to be in film study. Now they want you to go to tutoring. Now they want you to do all these other things. I benefited from choosing to stay close to home. So I went to school in Brooklyn. My mom lived in lower Manhattan. I ride over the bridge, maybe 20 minutes, and I'm back at home. Some young people nowadays are enticed by those NIL deals, right? So they're going to school in the middle of the country, and they're being inundated with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and they don't know what to do with that. I benefited from not being enticed by that. But at the same time, you know, these young people have an idea of who they are and what they want way more than I did when I was 18, 19 years old. They have so much more autonomy and freedom to make those choices. And my mom really helped me make a lot of that, but some of them don't have people who have their best interest at heart.
Very true.
My mom wanted me to go to a school that was good, that gave me the opportunity to put my talents on display. And I was able to do that, and we went through that process together. Some folks need that money, right? I was, again, fortunate and blessed that that wasn't my situation, but that's something that a lot of young people have to deal with.
Yeah, it gets hairy when, you're coming from a space where you all don't have. You may be a star athlete, but your family may be struggling to put food on their table or keep a roof over their head, and you have an opportunity that may not be best for you as a human, but may be best for your family. And as a young person, you are making sacrifices and decisions for others and not just yourself. And, the wherewithal is different. Social media definitely has changed information in general, what you know, what you don't know. When we were young people, internet was still very new, so we didn't really know how to find information. As to now, NIL information, why people go to certain schools, all that stuff is public knowledge, and it can help you create a more well-rounded decision. But if your decision making and your processing is more so on, we need money, this school offered the most, we're gonna take it and make the best of it, that oftentimes doesn't lead to success. And so what would be your advice to a young person who does have like a high-level NIL deal on the table, but may not want to go to a school that is far away from home or just not in their best interest? They may not even get along with the coach, but the money's there. How would you talk somebody through that?
Funny enough, I have a young person who's in college. I'm not going to put his business out there, but he and I had a lot of conversations around, what schools he wanted to go to. There was a few in the immediate area that were giving him really good offers, but the best offers were coming from the middle of the country. He was like, hey, because you've been in this, what do I do? Like, do I leave and go to Arkansas because I got this great opportunity and they're willing to give me $500,000, right? That's money that can change not only my life, but my family's life. I can go out there and live a total different lifestyle. Or do I take something a little bit more closer to home because I want to be able to go back and forth to see my family and take a little less, right? But this is the opportunity I want, but this may not be the best opportunity for everybody else around me. So it's about having those conversations and getting those young people to understand, like, what do you think is best for you, right? Helping them understand that you have control over this. Like, this is your decision. Like, this is one of the first decisions you're gonna have to make as an adult. Giving them the opportunity to think about what they need and not throwing your expectations of what you can get out of it. It's hard to put your experience out there and at the same time make sure that young people are making decisions that are for them and not speaking through your lens.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because it's a stressful situation. And like one of our principles is helping people dose stress. And I think that if you do it the right way, finances are great early on if it's a dose stress. If you know you want to be a professional athlete, if you know that you want to make millions of dollars one day, making thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars at 18, 19, 20, if it's handled the right way, if you have the right team around you, it could be that manageable stress that allows you to grow with that funding. Because the other part of like an NIL deal, I always call them a lottery ticket, right? A kid coming from nothing and they get a $500,000 or $1 million NIL valuation, and there's a school willing to pay that, you also have never had that amount of money before. And that can cause all types of behaviors. It can cause a lot of negative attention. It can create a lot of negative pressure on you and stress, because if you are going to a school in the middle of the country and they've spent a ton of money on you being there, all eyes are on you in that city. All eyes on you in that conference. All eyes on you on that campus. So you don't have the opportunity to have a bad day or take a mental health day or to have a bad game or to have a bad match. And so I think being very aware of how you build a team around a young person or even provide relationships on campus. The LeBron model is cool because he didn't go to school, but he had 3 friends that he put through college to potentially run his empire, right? And so it could literally look, if you're a kid that's going to school and I know the school values that they're gonna give me $1 million, why not give me $500,000 and take my 3 friends and put them in school and give them full rides? They don't have to play sports, but I need my team around me. I need to feel safe. I need to feel comfortable. I remember I wasn't the best student in high school, but my mom and I were trying to figure out college. And we were in dire straits to the point where there was a school in, I think, the middle of the country, I want to say Iowa, and they were literally giving away full rides to black kids just because you were black.
Funny enough, I got a scholarship to Indiana middle of the cornfield, went to visit it. I was like, I'm not going here, though. No way.
So we were this close. Like, it almost happened. And reason being, it was because it was a full ride. We didn't have the money for me to go anywhere else, really. And I didn't have many options. And so I remember looking on the website, and they had a whole, like, a section for the incoming black students of, like, hang out at the barbershop, hang out at the rib shack. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm cool. And I ended up going to a HBCU, and I'm so grateful for my experience there. Had I went out there, I would have went out there alienated, alone, terrified. Even with the full ride, I may not have made it past my freshman year. I may not have made it past the first semester because it was so far away, I needed a flight to get home. We don't have money for flights. Like, we don't have money for me to travel back and forth. So if I'm not feeling comfortable, I got to tough it out for a semester. And then when I come home, I may not go back. And so when you're talking about giving these kids opportunities, I think there's a lot of human element that gets left out of. They're still 17, 18. They're still going to be far away from home. Yeah, they may have their teammates who they may bond with and build relationships with, but that may not always happen. Like, that's not a given. It's not a guarantee. It's not even a guarantee you're going to get along with your coach. So if you're a coach with a kid that has an opportunity, if you're a parent, if you're a brother, an uncle, an aunt, a sister, and you see that your young person has an opportunity, who is their protective layer? Who is the person around them that, hey, can this person get into that school? Can two of their friends go with them so that they feel better about making this choice and making this decision? Because I think ultimately your mental health, your emotional well-being is just as important as your physical well-being when you're trying to play a high-level sport, or you're expected to be the savior of a program or the new guard or the new face of a program. I totally believe that there are schools that are willing to pay, but people don't know to ask these questions or make these requests. And so for you, like, you went off to school, you stayed home, but had you went away, had you taken one of those scholarships to go away and play ball, do you think that things would have turned out the same? Do you think that you would have needed that protective layer? Because New York is also a very unique place in the world, and you don't get that same energy and flavor going to the middle of the country, or going to Indiana, or even coming to California, or, you know, Arizona or Oregon or Seattle. So if you've taken one of those other scholarships, how would you think that would have turned out for you, just from a human standpoint, not even from an athletic standpoint, but just you leaving New York?
First, I would say, you know, I think it would have been not the same, but that protective layer, no matter where I was in place, right? Because when I'm talking to these coaches, when I was in those rooms, when I'm at these practice or these tryouts or these open runs or whatever for coaches to come see me, my mom was at everything. Nice. Right, so she's like, hey, these are decisions, right? And we always talk about, you know, how our young people's brains aren't developed to make these concrete decisions. We need someone to be outside of us to kind of help us be ready to make those decisions, or like be our external frontal lobe, like to be a concrete reasoner for outside of us. And she was in those spaces asking a lot of questions. She was like, hey, so my son, he's gonna come to the school. He's gonna bring you a lot of dollars. He's gonna make your program better in every way. You're gonna get a quality human being, you're gonna get a quality athlete. But what is the school gonna do to improve my kid? Right? So in having those conversations with her, she taught me how to advocate for myself in a way that I didn't know how to in that way. She asked questions that, you know, weren't in the front of my brain. And I think that would have traveled with me to any other part of the country. Okay. So in that regard, I think that protective layer was there. And she also let me know, like, hey, we don't got the money to send you everywhere, but I always got money to bring you back.
Nice.
Right? I will never leave you somewhere you don't want to be, right? I don't care about them. My priority is you. Their priority is them. And she made sure that lived in the front of my brain all the time. And whenever something got bad, whenever something got, you know, to the point I was like, maybe I need to go, she was like, well, you know, let me know. And if it's me coming to see you to ask questions that you may not think to ask, then I can do that. Or if you think it's time to blow it all up and come back home, I got money for a plane ticket all the time. It's about making sure that, yes, you want young people to go into these spaces and step up and be responsible and accountable, but also give them a time or give them an opportunity to say, hey, if this is not for them, they don't feel like they got to be in a situation that's not comfortable to them.
So that's where I guess my concern and me not knowing what that process is like, especially now, comes in, is like it's more transactional
100%.
Than anything. I feel like school is the last thing that really matters. It's more, what money am I going to get paid?
Mm-hmm.
what are my responsibilities? And I even read an article recently. They're trying to create contracts around NIL so that kids don't jump into the transfer portal whenever there's an issue or whenever they don't feel comfortable or whenever there's a change within the school. And so because things are so transactional, that's a weight that young people have to carry. And 100%. I think about myself, I went away to college at 17. It's no way somebody would have handed me a check for $1,000, let alone hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would have been able to perform or stay on task or act as if I had an actual job. Like, I'm treated as a professional at that point, but you have an amateur status, you're supposed to be a student, you have so many other things you're trying to worry about. But I feel like the actual school portion of it, the human side of, like, this is a kid going away to school for the first time, they're away from their family, they're away from their parents, they have responsibilities that they've never had before, they're meeting new people, their horizons are different, and also their motives will change, their interests will change, their minds will grow, their hearts will grow, things will develop differently. And if basketball or whatever the sport is no longer in my interests, I've already committed to this financial feat that my family needs. You know, it's changed our trajectory, it's changed our lifestyle, so you kind of feel stuck, or you feel like you have to do it instead of having a passion to do so. So I wonder how families and coaches and communities can support young people making these decisions, to not only make the decision for the now, but 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now. Because if you go away to play ball at school, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go pro. So you need to make the best of this opportunity, and that's not just a financial thing now. That's an education thing. That's a mental health situation. That is an emotional health situation. That's a physical health situation, because you don't want to go to school, tear your leg up, and then you drop out or you wash out. You have no money, you have no prospects, no opportunity, no education. Now you're right back to where you were. You may be a few dollars richer, but your heart's damaged. You know, your ego is damaged. You feel like you have nothing left. I always tell people, you know, one of the most gripping scenes I've ever seen in a movie is Friday Night Lights, when it's very apparent that Boobie Miles' career is over. And he and his uncle, everything that they did was to get him to play college football. And he was like, what am I going to do now? And they literally cry in the car because their plan is done. And so how do you help a child? How do you help an athlete? How do you help a family plan the right way to make the most of this opportunity when it's presented?
Like, I really think that folks really need to understand that you have to have the dream is the dream, right? But that can't be option A, B, C, D, and D, right? Yes, I have this sport, and me playing this sport has the opportunity to change the trajectory of my entire family. Everybody that's close to me can be better if this goes in the way it does. But you have to plan for it if it doesn't go in the way you want it to, right? And that's unrealistic, and some people may not want that to be the thing. Like, they're like, hey, I'm going to work towards this. This is going to happen. But how can I use what I'm learning in the sport? What skills are transferable to what else I want to do, right? And what are my passions outside of this? Yeah. I think a lot of folks really tie everything into the sport, right? And I was that kid before, right? And if you'd asked me when I was 16 years old, I'm going pro, I'm going to NBA, right, or I'm going overseas, right? But at the same time, my mom was like, hey, I support that. My dad was like, I support that. But, right, we have to plan for when basketball's over. But we got to do that now, right? Because we don't know when basketball's over.
Right.
So what do you want to do? If you want this to be a profession, if you want sports to be a profession, what outside of basketball can you do? Do you want to go into the officiating realm, right? That's something that could be great for you.
Right? I can't see you as a ref. Because I can't see people talking crazy to you during the time.
That's why I don't ref. That's why I don't ref. Anywho, right? Do you want to officiate? Do you want to coach, right? Do you want to run a program? Do you want to work in the front office for a team? Yeah. Like, these are all things that you would be positioned better than most because you've experienced the sport at the highest of levels, right? So think about those things, right? Don't just put all your eggs into, and my mom was like, I am not telling you not to work hard for what you want to do, but you have to think about the other things outside of that. What are the sport or the basketball adjacent things that can still allow you to have a worthwhile career? Because you know this is what you love, you know this is what you want to do. There are other ways to do something you love without it going in the way that you want. Like, the success is not going to be a straight line. You have to plan for the tangents. And we did a good job at planning for that, and I feel like that's why I'm in this chair with you right now, right? So it's about not only just not telling the kid to not pursue that dream because you want to reward that. We want them to say, that's okay, chase as much as you want. But in your pursuit of that, also understand that we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We have to think about that. We got to think about opportunities outside of what we love to do, because there will be a time where that ends, and that's for everybody. We have to be as prepared for that today, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to be.
I think it's interesting that I think what you're describing is I hate to say it like this, but the run-of-the-mill college athlete situation. And when you think about LeBron, in high school, he was already too big to fail.
Yep.
And you brought up like the basketball adjacent things, and I always hark back that his friends went and did the basketball adjacent things because they knew he was going to at least make it to the NBA, right? Like, bar none, he's going to make it to the league. He may not ascend to the heights that people expect him to, but he's going to be there. So how do we build around him? And what's so funny about his ascension, I guess, is his first 4 years in the league, his friends are getting degrees, right? Like, his friends are in college working hard, making sure that when they get out, not only will they be able to support him, they're going to be a part of an empire. They're going to be a part of something that's already moving, but they have a job, right? And I think that's one of the cool things. If you do work with a young person who may be the next big thing, or may have an opportunity to be a professional athlete, and they're getting the opportunities and the exposure in sports to do so, look at the kids around him or her. Look at the kids that they are hanging with. Are these kids in their studies? Are these kids in the streets? Are these kids goofballs? Are these kids just they're genuine friends, right? I have friends that I grew up with who I can see them, I haven't talked to them in years, and we can laugh and joke. And I have friends that I grew up with who work just as hard as me. Right, and I think those are the determining factors you want to look at when you're building a team around you. And if you're an adult in that child's life, if you're a coach in that child's life, you're 9 times out of 10 coaching them and the friends, so you kind of know where they are and what's going on. And I think it's okay to start thinking about, how do we help one another? How do we help support the one person who may make it, but also pour back into the community? Because ultimately, that's what you want. We talk about Bron, but you and I had a conversation yesterday about Westbrook. And
doing great things.
All that he does for children in Los Angeles and how he pours back into, I think you can look at a certain person's ethic and what they bring to the table and know that this person may not be an NBA player, but this person may be somebody that knows you, knows the sport well, can speak well, and can support you in other ways, or just represent you and represent your brand and what you're about and what you care about. And I think families also can help to cultivate that. I think it's, again, a stressful thing to release your child to the next adult or the next human being in another state, knowing that you're not going to be able to step foot on campus every single day or every time there's an issue.
What was that quote we heard yesterday? We don't want them coming back strange.
You don't want your kids coming back strange. Yeah. You don't want your kids coming in the house strange. But I think it's a powerful thing to have a plan. It's a powerful thing to include other young people in your planning, because oftentimes what will happen is you're put on, especially with social media now, the moment that it's identified that you are a great high school athlete, your exposure goes up. And with your exposure going up, so does people being able to get to you, people being able to reach out and touch you or talk to you or say things in a public forum that may impact you or hurt you. And so if you have the right folks around you, not just adults, but young people, like people your age. Like, if I had a young person who's going through that, I don't understand social media to the depths that they do. So you might want to have somebody that's controlling your social media so that you don't make those mistakes, or you're not liable for saying things or responding to negative comments. I think it just is very important and imperative to have a plan nowadays, because there's so much money involved in youth athletics. Like, age 13 to 21, there's money involved that's not in a professional space.
There's coaches, there's young people we're talking about, like, hey, I'm gonna stay my 4 years in college, then I'm out of here. I'm not going pro.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a reality that they have today that we wouldn't have thought about.
Right.
Like LeBron, imagine him being 18 in today's America, having that type of money, right? Whew. He could have got a Nike deal and had a bunch of NILs and went to Ohio State and made just as much money.
Yeah.
If not more.
If not more, yeah.
Right, and that's a reality that we have to, like, and I think a lot of people telling these young people what to do have to realize the age in which they're doing it, right? This is not when we were coming up.
Right.
So the advice has to has to kind of match where sports has evolved to.
Yeah.
Right, so we can't, like, what worked for me in speaking to my young people nowadays, I know that's not a realistic conversation I can have with them. I have to take into consideration the context of today's sports landscape. And a lot of folks, I don't think, are doing that. They're trying to live their dreams through young people. And it's okay it's okay to inspire young people, but you can't have them trying to, be who you weren't. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because today's totally different, and you want them to be the best versions of themselves, not what you couldn't be.
It'd be dope if people understood what a context map was, and you could do a context map.
I think we need to do one of those on the episode.
Right, like you could do a context map around what this looks like in the future, and what the lens is from the adults in the room, what the lens is from the athlete, and what the lens is from the friends around them. And then we can come together and understand the totality of the situation and how we move forward and how we support this athlete, but also how we make a plan to maybe with the funding, because again, we don't know if we're going to go pro. So if somebody's handing you X amount of dollars to go to school in an NIL contract or NIL offering, how do we preserve that fund? How do we make sure that money works for you 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road? Because there are athletes who never spent their professional, like Marshawn, he never spent his professional money, right? He literally lived off of endorsement deals, and every game check he saved. And now he's living a fruitful life in his late 30s, just hanging out, gets to go wherever he wants to go, do whatever he wants to do.
I like that guy.
He's a dope guy, and I think there's a lot that young people can learn. I think LeBron is a pie in the sky. I'm not gonna say nobody's gonna be LeBron, but he's a once in a generation athlete for very many reasons, not just his athletics and what he does on the floor, but what he represents off the court, the things he's been able to do off the court, the I Promise Academy. But also, I remember coming out of high school, he got drafted. He had a $90 million Nike deal.
Before he even signed the paper for Cleveland.
Yeah, before he stepped on the court, he already had a $90 million Nike deal. It was the most money ever given to an athlete, right? That doesn't happen for everyone. And so I think having a plan, having a conscious understanding of what today's landscape is, and having a conscious understanding of what that young person wants to be now and how they're going to grow and develop, because things are going to change.
Yeah.
What I like is going to change. What I'm into is going to change. What I want to do with my life is going to change. Somebody could go to college to be a basketball player and be projected to go top 10 or a lottery pick and go be a Rhodes Scholar doctor, right? We've seen NFL players do that. We've seen people change their mind. And so I worry that the NIL, it's weighted in a way that young people don't have choice and control over their opportunities. And I think they do, but it has to be thought out before you actually take that money.
I agree, and the people around them need to understand what they're signing up for, right? And if these young people are making decisions for themselves, people need to be okay with that, right? Sometimes what that young person needs and what was best for them in the long run is not going to be what's best for people immediately, and the young people need to be conscious of the people who they have around them when they're making those decisions.
Yeah. So I just want to wrap things up by, reiterating, if you have a young person that you're working with as a coach that has the opportunity to play college ball or even has an opportunity to maybe have a professional career one day, I think it's find time to start early to build a plan and map out what this should look like right now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, even 2 years from now. Create a model, create a plan that will not only support that young person financially and athletically, but also emotionally and mentally. Give them all the tools they need to be successful. Any last words?
Agree with those sentiments 100%. Just make sure that your plan is well thought out and it's in the best interest of the young people.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, that's another episode of Coaching While Black. Please like, listen, subscribe, and share with your friends. Follow us on all socials at CHJS.org, including YouTube. With that, that's another episode of Coaching While Black. We'll see you soon.
Peace.